Would you like a light? Here you are.
But there, Scott.
No. See?
Hello.
Good evening.
Welcome back to the channel, everyone. If you're new, I'm the Bloody Mama. If you've been keeping up with some of my recent uploads, then you'll notice that I did a French Army challenge in 6 hours. If you watch that video to the end, you'll know that I wasn't very happy with it, and I vowed to never do something like that again. I am doing something like that again, but with a lot less minis this time. I think that's the right way to do it, to be honest with you. Full disclosure, the reason why I wanted to paint this SAS Force is because I ended up watching SAS Rogue Heroes. Not historically accurate. It's vaguely historically accurate, but yeah, this was it was a good jumping off point back into the British forces. I ended up selling all my British because I wasn't very happy with them, painting them up years ago. So this is a nice way to jump back into that kind of force. With all that being said, let's jump into the challenge. So in the last video, I painted up this mini using the Army Painter's 8th Army paint set. Here's the basis of the rest of the SAS Army that I'm painting. So if you want a more detailed uniform paint guide, I'd recommend clicking on that video here. I managed to pick myself up a Paddy mane. I was never a big fan of his monkey, so I've replaced it with something a little more sombre. To start off, I'm painting up the vehicles. I'll be using desert olive green for all the tarpauling and some of the rucksacks hanging off the sides. I'll also be using a deep khaki drill and greatcoat green, just to paint the various pieces of kit hanging around. There's a lot of rucksacks and bags all around these trucks, so it's good to add some variety in the colour scheme. I'll also be using the greatcoat green to paint in all the seats, as well as deep khaki drill to painting any of the loose helmets around the vehicles. I don't normally use Army Painter paints, so you'll have to let me know if this is the case for you. I did find them to be quite weak. They did need multiple coats just to get a nice finish, which obviously adds on to the time. All that being said, I do think that they're nice paints. So now we're going to use Corvus Black for all the tyres. Don't forget to hit the spare wheels, there's quite a few of them on these vehicles. And then I'll be using wild wood for all the timber. Normally I'd use dried bark, but I'd run out. The reason why I don't normally use contrast paints is because I'm prone to messes like this. Don't be like me. But after cleaning up that mess, I was about 1 hour and 10 minutes into the challenge, so I knew I had to pick up the pace. Next I was using desert webbing just to get all the straps. Once that was done, it was time to move on to the enamels. With the amount of streak and grime I get through, I'm sure the folks at AK think I'm drinking it, when in reality it's just my go-to for army painting. I've put a few drops of odorless thinner in this, because I didn't want it to be too grimy. Once I was happy that I'd coated the vehicles enough, I then loaded up my brush with odorless thinner, whacked a load more onto it, and then tidied it all up with a cotton bud. I'm not pushing with the cotton bud, I'm just soaking it all up, rolling it around. It seems quite dark during this process, but once all the enamels are dried, it'll brighten back up. Because this is a time challenge, I got the hairdryer out and dried the minis off outside. If you are going to use a hairdryer to dry off these enamels and spirits, then I'd recommend doing it outside. I can't stress that enough. So we're just over 2 hours into the challenge now. I wasn't quite done with the enamels, but we'll get to that. This is how they dried up after the streak and grime. So you could easily leave them looking like this, and I probably would if it was a European theatre, but as this is North Africa, I needed to get some Africa dust effects on there. The way this works is you just load it onto the mini. You can use odorless thinner just to weaken the effect. If you're not happy, you think it's too strong or too weak, you can always add more on, or you can just use some odorless thinner and a cotton bud to clean it off. It's very easy to use. So it took me about 14 minutes to apply, and then I took them outside with the hairdryer and got this effect. I was a bit skeptical about this product, but it's proved me wrong, and I'll definitely be using it in the future. This is what I mean by tidying up after it's dry. Just load up a cotton bud with some mineral spirits and simply wipe away. So with the vehicles mostly done, it's time to move on to the infantry. Deep khaki drill for the uniforms. I'll be using desert olive green for the sweaters. Greatcoat green for the odd set of shorts, as well as for a few other areas like the socks and the hats. I do cover that more in detail in the other painting tutorial video. Desert webbing for, you guessed it, the webbing. Tan skin for all the flesh. And then once those details are painted in, it's time to give it a wash with soft tone. Don't overdo it, just make sure the whole mini's coated. Try not to leave too much in the recesses. Just over 2 hours left in this challenge, time to get the minis painted up. Mid khaki drill, watered down and going over all the raised areas on the uniform. Light khaki drill, just on the peaks of all the raised areas. I did try using stone grey as the highlight for the sweaters, but I found ivory worked much better. Going back to tan skin, we're going to hit all the raised areas, cheekbones, noses, fingers, raised muscle areas, elbows, etc, etc. I was starting to panic at this stage, so there's a lot less recording. Using greatcoat green now to highlight all the raised areas. Dark leather for all the weapons, the boots, the leather straps, the hair, anything dark really. And then once that's dry, a dry brush of stone grey. Time to paint some of the headdresses now, using medium sea grey and ivory. Base coat of medium sea grey over the black, and a highlight of ivory on the raised areas. Don't forget to paint in the band that wraps the headdress around the forehead. So with just under an hour to go, I decided it was time to super glue all the minis back onto the vehicles, and I think they're looking quite sharp. The streaking grime and the dust effect is really magic in the bottle, can't recommend it enough. You could paint these minis when they're attached to the vehicle, but it's much easier just to apply them on later. So I needed to get a few things done before the 6 hour mark, and on the top of my list was basing. Gave everything a coat of greatcoat green, then a wash of soft tone. With less than 20 minutes left, it was a race to the finish. To finish up, I did a heavy dry brush of mid khaki drill, and a light dry brush of light khaki drill. Used some Wraithbone for Paddy Main's skull. And then once that was all dry, I used Africa Dust Effects watered down with odorless thinner, just to give it a dusty effect. I had a couple of minutes spare, so I used these blues to paint in some of the goggles on the minis. And with a few minutes to spare, I called it a day. I'm pretty happy with how these turned out considering the time limit. When we look at the previous challenge, which was almost 50 minis for the French army, this is around 20 if you count the crew separate from the vehicles. It's a lot more manageable and can be done, especially with the help of enamel paints that some people don't seem to like in my comment section. Whether you like them or not, I've been the Bloody Mama, you've been wonderful, so stay safe and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.